This week's episode of Citizen Kane Versus, presented by Pepsi, dives deep into Taco Bell time travel and the refreshing, thirst-quenching power of Gatorade. You'll have more fun than bringing your family to Fuddruckers in your brand new Nikes. Just do it. Now sit back like you're waiting for your Pizza Hut pizza, powered by American Express, and enjoy Starbucks. We watch Back to the Future 2 and Idiocracy.
Oh, yep, that's exactly what it needed to be. Well done. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Citizen Kane Versus, where we compare a widely considered great movie with a movie that is widely considered to be more on the schlocky side and ask ourselves honestly, which is better? My name is Jack Rennie, and I'm here with my friends...
Sean Jacqueline.
And...
Daniel Benoit.
Mm-hmm. That's good. We recorded that the first week, and we actually just have a little recorder for that every single time now. So
do you know, Daniel, that I can't say your name in my head anymore without saying it in that monotone?
Good. Then it's working. Working.
I'll stop mid-sentence to be like, yeah, no, so I was talking with Daniel Benoit.
Daniel Benoit.
I love it.
So yeah, and the movies this week are the classic, as proposed by Sean last week, is Back to the Future 2. Not Back to the Future 1, but Back to the Future 2, which luckily includes a whole bunch of footage from Back to the Future 1. So that works out fine. Yep. And compared with Idiocracy, the connective tissue being that people go forwards in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when you first proposed these movies, I was skeptical again, and when Idiocracy started, when I was watching it last night, I was even more skeptical. I was kind of cursing your name, but they were a lot more similar than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, man.
Which is nice. A good call.
Like both trying to, like, clearly with directors trying to do like a strong predictive image of potential futures, right?
Yeah, and one of them getting them fairly like on the nose in certain ways.
Yeah.
And the other one missing the mark by a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. One is like the Elon Musk future that imagines things being sleek and quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is like the messy human being future where it's like, where do we put all of the garbage that are now mountains?
Well, one kind of felt like everyone's idea of what the future is going to be in like 2,000 years, and one just felt like where America is going to be in like 25 years.
Yeah, or like 6 months.
Exactly. One just felt like Idiocracy kind of felt like America on steroids, and Back to the Future was like, oh yeah, this is like a weird cartoon sci-fi movie.
Yeah, which like that's what Idiocracy was supposed to be, is like a way hyperbolized version of where America would go if like what was happening in 2006 was left unchecked. But he just didn't realize that some of those things would come true a lot faster than he thought.
Yeah,
because there's a loose amount of factuality, words of like truthiness in Idiocracy, right? Where it's like that, just like the statistical fact of that people that have more are of a higher intelligence, like a more standard intelligence, not discrediting other kinds of intelligence, but like those people are choosing to have fewer children than those with so-called lower intelligence. And so the argument goes that if that were left to just keep going, eventually we would kind of devolve again.
Yeah, which I think is kind of brilliant because that's literally already happening. You know what I mean? Like it's
an accelerated pace.
Yeah.
The stupidity has been allowed to run rampant, and I sound like a fucking guy on his front porch. The stupidity that's been allowed to run rampant in society.
Yeah, I have a different kind of nihilistic view of the current world, which is that we're realizing that we're actually not as smart as we thought we were.
Yeah.
That thing is like we've really reached this high level of civilization, and it's like, have we? I mean, in some ways.
But we have fancy phones, Jack. We've peaked.
Yeah.
We're at the pinnacle.
The Back to the Future is the future we were promised, and the Idiocracy future is the future we are being forced to eat instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Rough.
That's
so
dark.
okay, so people have an idea of these really glorious movies. Let's get some rundowns. Who'd like to go first?
I'll steal it.
Go
I'll
for it.
Unless, okay,
Ooh.
yeah.
He beat you to the takedown.
I'm so eager, but you have to go now.
Yeah. So with the classic, Back to the Future 2, this picks up, they literally refilm the last scene from Back to the Future 1 as the first scene of Back to the Future 2. So it picks up, it overlaps with Back to the Future 1. And our hero, Marty McFly, is embracing his girlfriend, and Doc Brown pops out from the future and says that they've got to go back into the future because Marty's kids are in trouble. And so they hop in, and this follows, they go forward, they knock out his girlfriend and leave her in a dumpster for days? Question mark?
For like
Hours,
the rest of the day.
Yeah, for hours. As they
just leave her random places everywhere though. They leave her a park bench like 2 scenes later.
Of a notably bad neighborhood.
Yeah.
Anyways, so this movie is ridiculous. So once they're in the future, Marty buys a sports almanac that predicts all of the sports scores from 1950 to 2000, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And with the intention of making a lot of money when he goes back to 1985, where he's from. They're in 2015 in the future.
2015. Keep that in mind, everyone. They're in 2015.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as the past.
Yeah, they save Marty's kids. They bump into what they're gonna be in the future, which is a little sad. Marty gets fired because he's a patsy. Anyways, then Biff, the villain from the first film, in his like octogenarian mode, steals the sports almanac and the DeLorean time machine and goes back to the 50s and gives it to his younger self so that he can use Marty's idea to earn tons and tons and tons and tons of money. So when they go back to 1985, when they go back to 1985 is different because it changed in 1955. So they have to go back to 1955 and figure out how to stop the almanac from being passed off to young Biff. They are in their own movie for a large chunk of this, and then we end on a cliffhanger going into part 3.
Yeah, and a trailer.
Yeah.
Which was that only for the Netflix version of it, or had they already shot the Western?
No, they shot them together.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah.
Because they reference the Western that's going to come throughout. Because they
Right.
really do refer to these movies as it's like part 2 and part 3.
Yeah.
Which allows me to forgive how much of it is like, hey, remember that first movie? We're not trying to be like an original sequel. We're a continuation of that movie. So
well, even at the end of it, they say to be concluded. Not, you know what I mean? It's just like it is one whole story and not just individual, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Yep.
It's just more confusing because Back to the Future 2 is 2 movies.
Yes.
Like there's the go in future in time movie, and then a whole other movie begins going back in time.
I described it to Aaron as like 5 half-hour TV episodes spliced into a film.
I was like, this 7-act structure is really working in on me.
Yeah.
Anyway, but then for context, Dan, tell us about Idiocracy.
Yeah, so in contrast to Back to the Future 2, Idiocracy takes place, I guess, in 2006, right? Like present day, whenever.
I think, but
was it 2005?
It was released in 2006. Yeah.
And through a narrated expository intro, we learn
and movie
we learn that, like Jack touched on earlier, the world is in a place where humanity is literally devolving because the more intelligent of the population are choosing to not have kids, while the dumber of the population are fucking like rabbits and just procreating uncontrollably. And that's kind of the backdrop. And then we meet Joe Bowers, who is the most average man in America. He's a military librarian, I think they refer to him as. And
Never put that really together.
Yeah, and he's chosen as a guinea pig for this this like hibernation program that the military wants to put into effect, where basically they want to see if they can freeze people. They want to see if they can freeze the most intelligent and most important people, and then reanimate them at a time where they can be the most useful. Because more often than not, the most intelligent people are not alive in a time where they can be utilized the most. So Joe Bowers is chosen for this as a test subject, as well as a prostitute named Rita, played by the lovely Maya Rudolph. And stuff goes wrong. The project is defunded and shut down almost as soon as these two people are put under, and they are essentially locked in stasis for 500 years. And then they wake up in a time where humanity has devolved to the point where everybody is essentially an idiot. And the most average person in the world, Joe Bowers, is now the most intelligent man alive, and is essentially employed by the American government to save the world and rescue their crops, which he learns that he can do by just watering these plants because everybody has been using Gatorade. And that's pretty much the entire story.
It's an hour and 15 minutes.
It's an hour and 15 minutes. It's pretty much the entire thing. Oh, and I didn't know that Joe Bowers is played by Luke Wilson.
Luke Wilson.
Perfectly cast as Luke Wilson as the most average person giving the most average of performances.
Yeah, there was a part where he gave a line and it went, oh, that, like, there was nothing there. Why would, oh, okay, no, that makes sense, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, and this movie, it started out real rough. The first like 20 minutes, I was honestly cursing you, Sean. I was like, if this whole movie is like this, he is literally not allowed to choose movies anymore.
And the thing is, it's like, the movie is like making this statement about like how we like shouldn't let like intelligence be taken for granted, I think, right? Is that what it's about?
we need to trust. It's saying like we need to trust the educated people around us and not let our like base instincts take over.
Yeah, but also kind of that like we need to suppress stupidity.
Yeah, it's a pretty classist
lest it
film.
take over. Yeah, it's like, it's tricky, but like I actually had a note at the end. I was like, I just wrote like, what is this story actually about? Like, I don't know. Like, I was like, what is this movie other than just like, hey, imagine everyone got dumber. And someone was like, oh, that'd be a funny movie. And then they didn't think about it. And they just like made a movie.
It seemed like they had a lot of bits that they wanted to just like explore around this premise. Be like, oh, so if he was a really average person, but he was the smartest person in the world, who would be the president? Well, of course, it would be a pro wrestler. A pro wrestler, yeah.
And porn superstar.
And porn superstar.
And porn superstar. Let's not forget
played by
that.
Terry Crews.
Who I didn't hate in this movie.
Terry Allen Crews.
Terry Allen Crews.
Right.
Terry Allen Crews in this.
I wonder what.
Yeah, didn't hate him. Sometimes Terry Crews, as like a fan of like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I sometimes kind of go like, you're not really doing it for me. But he's kind of a straight man, sort of, in that show. Anyway, we're not just up with that show. But this movie, I thought he fit in well.
He was fun. He was fun. He was doing his shtick, but it was somehow more grounded in this movie than like any other thing that I've seen him do. Even though it's always just way over the top, cartoonish kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like about context, right? Like his performance is, first of all, like he's supposed to be an over-the-top Old Spice salesman wrestler, and that really works for this. And the people who he's surrounded with are like also just as nuts. So suddenly he's the one who like seems grounded.
Speaking of his over-the-top performance, I just want to quickly talk about his first kind of address to the nation, where it's literally just like rock music is playing as he comes out, and it's like a pro wrestler entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wrote in my notes, I was like, oh, this seems more and more believable. Because like that's where we're definitely heading. And that was the thing, is like, for as ridiculous as this movie is, and as like poorly thought out as it is, it doesn't seem that far off the mark. right?
Nope.
Which is well,
Like
it's
we're certainly not in the complete cacistocracy that movie shows,
mhm.
but the base elements of the vanity that all of these people have are the reason we're in this mess.
Yeah,
Meaning the world.
it's a grossly hyperbolized version of things that we do see, like already. Like, I wonder what I'm referencing when I say like the kind of the dumber parts of society having a dominant sway of how society is run, um, being something. And like this movie really shows a lot of like capitalist extremism, where like everyone's like clothing is like made of ads, like they're like they are little cutout rectangles of ads.
One guy is paid every time he says presented by Carl's Jr.
Yeah. So it's just in regular life, which is funny because that's actually a fun line too. He's like, and they say you're a smart guy. But like the reason, like Dan, you mentioned like how he solves the crop crisis by just having them use water again, is that like the knockoff Gatorade company has become so powerful that they like got the rights to hydration or something like that.
They bought the FDA and something else. They just like bought it right out.
So essentially, water is only used for flushing toilets now.
Like in the toilet?
Yeah. Like in the toilet?
What was the name of that? Brondo?
Brondo, yeah.
Brondo. Right. But it's got electrolytes. It's got what plants need.
That scene was brilliantly written, even though there were only 2 lines said the entire scene where he's trying to convince them of the water.
There was a ton of funny shit in this movie. There was so many times where I like laughed out loud at the screen, and I didn't expect it at all.
Yeah.
But I thought some of it was so fucking funny. Like the cop that just the cop's main thing is just pepper spraying the guy in the back seat constantly.
Yeah, those scenes I was like, well, yeah, no, there we are. That's right now. Okay, great.
Yeah. Or when they think they found the car that Not Sure is in, and they just surround the cops just surround the car and shoot it up, and then a crowd gathers and they all just like, start shooting in the air.
You're like, yep, no, that happened last night in Portland. Okay.
Yeah. That's
Oh my god. No, I think my favorite was when he escapes from prison. and he escapes from prison by just being like, I think that I'm leaving prison today, and the guard is like, you're in the wrong line, stupid, and just like sends him to
Yeah, I'm stupid.
But then he runs outside, and as soon as he leaves the prison cell, there's 2 guns that are mounted on either side of the door. They just start like randomly, aimlessly firing, and then one shoots the other one out.
Yeah, I laughed so hard at that. There were moments where I laughed so intensely in this film. Maybe it's catharsis from reacting to things I recognize from real life in it as well, but like some of this stuff is timeless.
Yeah, no, I thought some of it was brilliant. Some of it was really problematic. Like there was
like the language.
Yes, like repeated. Well, just like I'm not gonna say what the line was, but there's one moment in particular where when they're just going under, and the scientist walks in the room, he's like, "Okay, my bleep."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I was like, "What? Where the fuck did that come from?" Although
it's the same scientist
who wants to be the
same scientist who yeah, exactly, who
right,
like
which I just got now.
Yeah, who got his cut off from showing his whole slideshow about befriending his pimp friend and finding the prostitute. So it was supposed to be a joke about him being like one of the pimp's friends now, that he was comfortable saying that. Just dropped really randomly now is something that is like,
yeah, you go, oh,
we're like, no, don't, please don't.
Yeah. And a lot of the language that makes us do that now, that they use once he goes into the future, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess everyone was saying these things in 2005, 2006. That's like what the cool language was at high school, kind of thing. But then I was also thinking that no, this is the language that they're portraying because that's what these dumb people are used to. This is the language that they use because it's all they understand how to do.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So like, yeah, the commentary, I mean, it's not off the mark. But after a while, I was like,
Yeah.
maybe you can stop throwing
Yeah.
that word around now. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah. I had a very weird experience. I also watched this because of timing this week. Like I watched this movie like almost a week ago, if
Wow.
not like a week ago.
Oh, wow.
And I don't have a ton of notes about it. I just made note how like it's like a lot of narration, like a lot of narration. And just be like, and then he did this. And we're like, great, cool. And like the initial thing of them going, you mentioned that like so the premise, like the initial premise for this movie is that they get stuck in these pods to be frozen or whatever, just like not even frozen, but
Suspended.
Yeah. And they're like, the joke is that they end up getting thrown like big dumpster heap, like these mountains, and then they end up being cracked open and they come back. So were there like, they make a point though, it's the thing where they make a point of mentioning that they have IV like fluids being pumped into them.
Yeah.
Like they make a whole like thing about it before they go under, which means that I'm thinking about IV fluids after 500 years have passed.
Ooh.
Which is just like unfortunate, because if they hadn't brought it up, I'd be like, it's just a suspensioned magical tech. But I'm like, did they have 500 years of nutrition?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
I wouldn't have thought about it either, but they made a whole meal out of it.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
I don't even remember that actually.
Yeah, they approach him with like a whole bunch of cords and tubes, right? Is that, or am I thinking something different?
Maya Rudolph gets all like, she's like, like get this thing out of me or whatever. Like she's freaking out about the IV tubes. So like that's the thing. What I'm saying, like they bring it up, whereas like I'm just like, don't bring. It's right that my general feeling with this movie is like how much of this. I'm really surprised. I made notes about like the actually kind of an impressive amount of like practical sets and stuff that they made, and they kind of had like a certain kind of CGI that's not supposed to look real, but like has an aesthetic that is chosen that I appreciated.
Well, it's funny you say that, because one of my notes is I'm amazed at how similar the CGI is between Idiocracy and Back to the Future too.
Yeah, right. But
I was kind of amazed by it.
Yeah, but it's my point being that they made all this effort to like kind of world build, but not like write a story. So like they fleshed out. They were like, in the future you have a tattoo that it keeps your currency, and we're gonna build a whole practical machine that Luke Wilson's gonna put his arm inside, and it's giving him his tattoo. Wow! And it's like, hey, did you want to write a script? And they were like, no, like. This movie was based on a joke I made once, and
yeah.
Well, yeah, it felt like they had the general premise that someone had kind of just spitballed, and then they were kind of trying to make like an airplane-esque film out of it, and and then just
it definitely had that
they were
humor,
making a movie. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
right. But it's not parodying any movie that existed to do that.
No.
I've never seen this movie before. I had been told about it like a lot. People have talked to me about like, oh, you should see Idiocracy. Oh, you would like that kind of like
really
pitch to me. Yeah, mainly.
It's got a pretty big cult following. Yeah,
but yeah, a lot of people have said that over the years. Like I've heard about this movie a lot, and then to finally see it, it's like, oh, it's actually kind of weak. It's like they meant to make something that was deep, and then they made Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back by accident.
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah, I mean, it is weak, but I mean, it's also fucking hilarious.
Yes.
So,
oh yeah, sure, it has funny moments.
So like, I think it does essentially what it set out to do. It doesn't feel like a movie that was ever supposed to be too strict on story.
Oh,
right. They just needed to get us from like A to B loosely somehow.
So yeah, but the A to B wasn't even clear. Like it could have been a really simple A to B, but it wasn't.
I mean,
Daniel,
yes, Sean.
Well, was there a moment you mentioned in the first 20 minutes you were ready to like come over here and cut me up into small pieces and feed me to?
I never said that.
I believe that was verbatim, Jack.
Direct quote. Yeah, I'll read it back. I'm just gonna read that back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Dan said, Sean, after 20 minutes, I wanted to come over to your house and cut you up into small pieces.
Oh, okay.
See, I told you,
apologize.
Sean,
I
you
misquoted
fucking
you.
liar.
I apologize. I
Small
apologize.
God
Anyway,
damn it.
so at 20 minutes, what happened that made you not want to murder me horrifically?
You know what it was? It was when he's walking down the street when he first gets to the future, and he looks at a billboard that says, "If you don't smoke Territons, fuck you."
That's beautiful, Daniel.
Yeah, and I was like, "That's it. I'm in. I'm in."
Good.
Yeah,
You only have 40 minutes left at that point, so
that's true. Well, that was the thing, right? As soon as they started just like throwing in little quick punchline things like that, and it started getting funny, I was on
Yeah.
board. But the whole setup was so lame. I mean, I
Yeah.
was intrigued by it because they won me over with their explanation of dumb people are fucking more than smart people, and that's gonna like spell the end of humanity. And I was like, that actually is pretty bang on. And then it kind of just like meanders for 15, 20 minutes. And then you meet Luke Wilson, who bored me to death. And I was like, oh man, fuck, this is really weak. And then we got to, once they get to the future and you start kind of just like getting punchline after punchline, I was fine.
you were in.
I was in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's clearly where they wanted to get to. Like,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
I thought there was something funny. There were a couple funny things in the early movie. Like you mentioned, like his military librarian thing. The guy who comes down to like get him out of the job, and he's like, there's a little joke where he's like, because Luke Wilson he's like so reluctant to do anything effortful, so the superior is like, all right, like we're starting, it's like right now, so let's go. And he's like, well, I gotta train my replacement. And he's like, I don't think he'll have a hard time sitting on his ass watching TV. Let's go. And I was like, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie was tricky for me. I did enjoy individual moments, but the movie as on the whole was I just, it's not that it was, I wanted it to be better. I really
Yes.
wanted it to be a more fleshed out. This is kind of the culmination of all the things I've been saying. I just want it to be more fleshed out, and just have like a bit more direction behind it in terms of like its storytelling, because it kind of just does a thing. They mentioned that there's like a host of problems to be solved. He kind of solves one of them, and then the movie abruptly ends.
Mhm.
And I don't
When
really
he
know.
becomes the president of the United States.
He becomes the president. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After having been Secretary of the Interior and then Vice President.
Yeah.
Secretary of the Interior, I thought was hilarious too.
That's a real thing, Daniel.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, man.
Secretary of the Interior is a real thing?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think they're responsible for like the general well-being of things within the country, the interior of the country.
Oh, then I think
Yeah.
that title is ridiculous and it's still funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds silly. It sounds like it's funny that they settled on that.
What did you think it was, Daniel?
I honestly had no idea. I
Oh.
thought that it was just some made up thing to like Secretary of Inside the White House, because everybody who introduced
Funny.
because everybody who introduces him or who puts him in the position, like the cabinet, as it were,
Yeah.
they were all idiots. So I thought they just like made up a position. So anyways, that's funny that that's a real thing, but I thought it was a joke.
I mean, there's still some truth in what you say, and it being kind of a dumb thing, and perhaps those people are kind of dumb in real life.
Yeah.
Like the professor or the Secretary of Education,
Mm-hmm.
who points a shotgun at his own face.
I liked Costco in the year 2505 is a like heavily armored prison, essentially. Or I guess it's like
no, it
an
wasn't.
encampment, a walled encampment.
It was like it's like an indoor city.
Yeah, it's just a place
Yeah.
where you can buy literally everything.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah,
like, I kind of like the fact that now every single store is just sex work.
Yeah. You go
Yes.
in.
Oh, I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
That it was like, what was the thing for Starbucks? It was like you can get a
Oh.
latte, an adult latte, or like
Like a gentleman's latte or
a
something.
gentleman's latte, I think is what it was.
For
Yeah, something like that.
$50,000.
Yeah,
Oh
but
man.
yeah, Costco is like a giant like mallscape. It's like it like extends for like the size of a city, and his like stupid lawyer friend, played by young Dax Shepard.
Shepard.
Who
There's
kind of steals this movie for me. I
He's
think.
pretty fun.
a little bit. Who pushes it far, but it works a little bit. But he's like his lawyer, which I also thought was a pretty funny scene of him being in, like, being on trial. But he mentions that he went to law school at Costco. Like as they're walking, like he knows the neighborhood that they're in inside. But the whole like jury scene, I thought it was a funny bit of narration. That's like he first arrives in the future, and like he can understand what they're saying, which is like a mix of like various like dumb styles of talking is kind of what they're saying. But because he speaks like normally, that to them they can barely understand him, and he sounds uppity, and like they say like negative derogatory terms about him sounding like overly gay and stuff like that, and that becomes like a chief argument against him when he's on trial. This movie is really silly. I'm trying to talk about it, and I can't talk about it without sounding like I'm a dumbass. And anyway, I'm done. I can't say anything. I can't talk about this movie. Anyway.
Oh man, Maya Rudolph was almost unrecognizable. It took like a while. Aaron was like, "Oh yeah, that person looks a lot like Maya Rudolph," and I was like, "Got some news for you."
Well,
yeah.
Well, this was
fun.
Yeah, she was. It's weird to watch Maya Rudolph in like real acting roles.
Mm-hmm. Real acting roles.
I mean, like roles where she's playing, like where she's trying to play kind of a straight character, because she doesn't really have a comedic part in this movie at all.
Yeah, I guess not. She is the straight person to. I guess they're both both the fish out of water, so they have to be the straight people to everyone else's absurdity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of hard pressed to think of a moment where either one of them do anything funny. And I'm not sure if Luke Wilson is supposed to be funny at all, or if he's just if he's supposed to be super bland. That's the whole idea. Oh
man, you're right. I don't think he does a single funny thing.
No.
He holds a dildo funny at one point.
He doesn't hold. Does he hold the dildo?
Yeah,
no.
It doesn't he like pick it up? It like comes into this, or someone else picks it. Oh, it's the people in the crowd.
It flies into the crowd.
Yeah, it flies into the crowd. Okay, so that's not Luke Wilson. Oh, no. And that's the lesser Wilson brother as the as what nacho cheese or beef supreme. That's what his name. Beef supreme is I forget what his first name is, but he's also a Wilson.
Oh,
Charlie.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah, that's Luke's brother.
Oh man, I did not know that.
Is that the guy that he's in the death match with?
Yeah. Who comes in
really?
with the so the phallic monster trucks were perfection.
Yeah, what was up with that? Everything about that just seemed like, but that was one thing that stuck out to me, as like everything else was really low hanging fruit in terms of their humor, but it all was still kind of driving towards the central point or commentary. And then they just have these big dick trucks, and I was like, that's cheap. But
aren't those the monster trucks of the future?
I mean, maybe.
We already have battle bots that have those like very phallic attack objects on them.
But those are like jagged swords, like they're actual weapons. These are just gigantic trucks with big metal penises.
Drill dicks on them.
Big dick drills on them.
Big floppy drill dicks.
And it's sad though that of the two movies, this was the more realistic one.
Yeah. Although I will say that in our other movie, Back to the Future 2, when they come back from the future, and they're in the alternate 1985. That also was very like close to what we're sort of experiencing nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it felt a little more Mad Max-ish than.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I was also confused by that whole sequence, because at every other time in that movie, when someone does something to affect the past or the future, they can tell that things have changed, either through like their surroundings or through the newspaper. But when Biff goes back in time and then comes back to the future, and he's literally changed the entire course of history, nothing has changed in that timeline.
Yeah, but he starts disintegrating meaning perhaps that timeline is starting to fall apart, and maybe Marty and the Doc escape before it totally does. Or sorry, Marty, Doc, and Jennifer, who is
you forget
passed out again by this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he start to disintegrate?
Well, he gets in the car and he's holding his stomach, which I just kind of realized now what was happening.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
But also we get a really quick explanation from Doc that he creates a new future parallel to the future that they were currently in. Is also why.
The time,
but then wouldn't every
it doesn't make
single
sense.
time? Yeah,
look, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It absolutely does not
sense.
make sense. I was kind of hoping we'd sit here and meticulously try and piece it all together, but I'm not sure if our listeners can do 6.5 hours of us slamming our face off the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm down to try if you are.
Oh well. Okay, in 1955.
Yeah, there might be some logic if you wanted to that you could pull from stuff. Like Doc talks about like the November 12th, 1955 or whatever the date is being of like special significance in quantum time, that like maybe because it went back then it caused a different effect than what it might usually have. I don't know.
I definitely chose Back to the Future Part 2 because I knew Idiocracy would, in no realm of possibility, have stood up to Part 1. Because Part 1 is a fun film that has like a plot that flows and culminates in something. And
it does.
Part 2 is a bunch of mess.
It's just like a consistent onslaught of new plot points. It was like I was exhausted by the end of that film. Just trying to track what was happening.
And it was only like an hour 45 or so, but it felt like it was 3.5 hours long.
Like a 3.
Well, because it's like 2.5 movies within one movie.
Yeah.
And they also didn't want to. They wanted to like call back to everything from the previous movie.
Yeah,
we had to see every character. We had to.
Yeah. I will say that was helpful for someone who hasn't seen the first one in years and remembered like next to nothing. When the movie started, I was like, oh fuck, I really should have looked up.
I asked you.
I have seen it. I just don't remember any of it.
I mean, my first note for this movie is that it's right away it's like a big old fuck you to anyone who hasn't seen the first movie.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like. I was like, oh, this is not for me. This is not
a sequel. This is part 2, folks. If you didn't catch episode 1, sorry.
We'll reshoot the last scene with a different actress just to make sure, and then we're going full steam ahead.
Was it a different actress?
Yeah. Elizabeth Shue took over from, I forget her name. Gonna throw away to some a commercial break right now. Any final words, gentlemen?
This message brought to you by Brondo.
This first commercial break is unofficially brought to you by Zoom. We're not paying them to use this service, and they're not paying us to advertise, but we couldn't do it without the app. Thanks, Zoom!
Hey, welcome back. So, where we left off before that lovely commercial break was we were just starting to get into Back to the Future 2. Here and talking about some of the things that we enjoyed about it, some of the things that we maybe didn't enjoy about it. We were just talking about like the length of the movie in particular in terms of like how it was put together. Like one thing that I wanted to get to that we were starting to bring up was the almanac. The almanac becomes a really important plot point to this movie. It's the thing that they keep. It's like they've gone back in time for the second part of the movie, and the whole goal is to get the almanac back. And we have to sit through like at least a dozen moments where Marty is very like slowly creeping up on the almanac with someone having it nearby, and then him not being able to because he's gone really slow. Yeah. And then the movie has to keep going. Yeah. And eventually it becomes infuriating.
Yeah. When he did the thing where he like Spider-Man stealth jumped off the staircase down into the cement floor and made no sound whatsoever, I full on like threw my book across the couch and was like, "What is this film?"
Yo, and
No,
that's
he-
not
he-
that's
he
not
made
even
a
as bad.
sound.
Yeah. And then
He
Biff
made a
was like,
sound.
and looked
Yeah.
slightly to the sides. That does not even remotely compare to the time when Marty is hiding in the back of Biff's car and is
Oh, yeah.
walkie-talkieing
The doc,
from it
yeah,
in full voice, and Doc is also responding in full voice through the
Yeah.
walkie-talkie, and Biff is just kind of like looking side to side, like they're trying to make it seem as though he's confused and thinking it's the radio. Like you have to assume that Biff has like major hearing issues, which kind of tracks. That's why he yells a lot. Maybe
Yeah.
like he might be partially deaf, which is
Or
why.
are they trying to play off that he's just like simple?
because
But
he
even simple people know where sounds are coming from. Like
there was a point with Biff where it's the first time in the series you've seen Biff's house, and he comes out and you hear his verbally at least abusive grandmother screaming at him through the porch door. And I had a moment of pure empathy of like, oh, this is where this movie will give a human side to Biff. And maybe he has a redemptive arc or something. And then he immediately takes a child's ball and throws it into another house, just to quash any empathetic reactions you've had to him.
Yeah, this in general, I kind of thought about how this movie has really negative implications about like genetic imperatives of like people are destined to become who they become. That like even though Marty like helps his dad become stronger in the last movie, and Marty is kind of pretty confident, like he still ends up being picked on, and his son still becomes this kind of like spineless character again, and Biff's descendants become like shitty people again. It's like it has some weird connotations behind that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you bring in part 3 and you go back in the past and you see that's how everyone's family has been, with the exception of I guess the McFly family, because like the Marty McFly of that time is kind of cool. But anyways, that's for the Jaws 3 versus Back to the Future 3 or something. Yeah.
But yeah, just it's also one of those things with the like when they go back in time, Doc says like get the almanac back by any means necessary. He's like, do you have to do get that thing back? That's what's going to change this. It's also one of those semi-annoying things of whenever you have a movie that revolves around people who own a time machine, it allows you to access things that can solve most of your problems. Like literally earlier in the movie, Doc, just to get the girlfriend character to stop talking and being a part of the story,
oh man,
shines a light in her eyes and makes her pass out, which is totally cool why that technology would exist.
Oh. Don't worry, Marty, I just roofied her. It's fine.
It's fine. Let's put her next to this garbage pile and leave her here.
Oh my god, what happened in that fucking part of the film?
So he has that technology, but for some reason he isn't like, hey, Marty, take my sleep ray. It'll really help you probably in all situations. Or just anything else from even modern technology of like chloroform. Like, honestly, why does Marty have to be spineless? Give him a gun. Like, I wanted him to do something shitty, like either like hold up Biff or like be shitty to him, or like there's the random spin-off where the principal gets the almanac and he goes to get it again. But like we see the principal, like the hard-ass principal is having a drink on the job. I'm like, oh, instead of having the same bit of Marty sneaking up, maybe a scene where he like confronts the principal and like holds his drinking at work over his head, and like a scene could happen, but it's mostly a series of bits and it's the same bit.
Didn't you enjoy the 9.5 minutes of Marty slowly reaching across the table to try and get the almanac?
I mean, I was so on edge.
I was riveted by that whole scene. Keep reaching.
I was like,
keep reaching.
Does he grab it? Reach. Good. Wow. Damn.
Yeah.
Are you Michael J. Fox?
Oh, thank you very much.
Speaking of Are You Michael J. Fox? I didn't realize that Michael J. Fox was going to be pulling an Eddie Murphy in this movie and playing like 14 different characters.
Did he play the daughter?
He
Yes.
did. He
Oh,
did
motherfucker!
Yes.
Motherfucker!
Yeah. He plays.
I'm
plays
trying
his
to
daughter.
remember. I'm trying to remember the movie where Eddie Murphy does that. It's is it The Nutty Professor?
It's the Nutty Professor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, where he plays his whole family.
So really, Eddie Murphy was doing a Michael J. Fox.
Ooh.
Whoa, you just blew my mind, man.
Boom.
Holy shit. Unbutton
also-
that top button there, buddy. You earned it.
Thanks, bud. That was really uncomfortable. All right.
Yeah. So Michael J. Fox plays himself and his various other family members, and he
And
went on
his
to be-
son. And his son.
and his son, and him in the future, and like he plays like a number of stuff, a number of people, and like different ages and stuff. And Michael J. Fox went on to become, he was a star. He still is considered a celebrity.
This movie made him a star. Well, the first
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Meanwhile, his counterpart, who is given as much, if not more, leeway in the extent of different characters played, of like various family members, of the guy who plays Biff, which don't know that actor's name still, but that's probably for a reason, as this is one of the most insane performances. And not just one performance, because he plays so many characters. Like he gave us a collection of completely bonkers performances.
Does he also play Griff?
Yeah.
That's also him, right?
Yeah.
Griff confused me. I wasn't sure what the hell that was about. And I'm pretty sure most of his lines were ADR'd. And I'm assuming it's because he yelled too loud on the day and like blew the mics up.
Yeah. He screams the whole movie, which is great. They brought back some more of the rapey vibes from the first movie.
Oh boy, did they!
When he pulls up her skirt and says like I think you look better without anything on and stuff like that.
Well, and then he just like grabs her and holds her in the street and just yells, "You're my girl."
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Biff as young again as per the first movie back in the 1950s, on the street grabbing Marty McFly's mother, trying to look up her skirt, and then when she runs away after he's like holding her by the wrists, she runs off and he runs into the middle of the street yelling after her. And per the 1950s, everyone's just like super non-commentary on that. Everyone's pretty cool with it.
I love the fact that what he yells is, "You're going to be my wife one day."
Yeah.
It's like, that's his idea of romance. It's not even that he's like being overly abusive or aggressive. I mean, he is being abusive, but it's not like he's being hypersexualized. It's like he's saying,
he's like, I'm going to make a commitment to you. For life.
But then we see what he really means by marrying someone when they're in the 1985 timeline, rather than the 1985.
But I mean, to be fair, by that point he's been corrupted by money and power, Sean.
Does money and power corrupt, or does the inherent values within us corrupt, Daniel?
Whoa.
I mean, I would probably say money and power corrupts.
Oh, well.
I really appreciate how
that was enough to shut that down, Sean.
Well,
this is not a philosophy podcast, Daniel.
But the fact that Biff became super rich also destroyed the town.
Yeah.
Like somehow made everyone else completely impoverished. And like this Mad Max world where in the center square, bikers just drive around in a circle kind of repeatedly.
It's a lot of gas wasted.
A lot of gas wasted.
Yeah.
This movie was so weird to watch.
Yeah.
Again, same like Idiocracy. Like this movie was like actually had a lot of like famous iconography taken from it. Like the hoverboard was a big deal at the time. People thought that was real and that they had made that. There's a really sweet story with the laceless shoes that Michael J. Fox wears in the future, that they do it by themselves. And then when Michael J. Fox later came down with his very severe Parkinson's, that Nike actually made those shoes for him, and they actually do themselves up.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is like a really sweet kind of story to kind of come from this. So like this movie does have history. That's why I think Sean like kind of picked it as a classic, even though I was hesitant at first, then I realized how much of it really has become famous in its own right, apart from the first movie. And a lot of it has to do with the first half of the movie, though.
Yeah, the future stuff.
The future movie. I had forgotten that, again, the second half of this movie is them going back. And then like a whole new sort of 3-act structure. But there's no structure. It's a very structureless movie.
No.
No, it's just like a bad thing happens and a new bad thing happens and a new bad thing happens.
And the doc being like, ah,
Yeah.
ah,
Just like
ah,
on speed the entire movie.
definitely cocaine.
Also, was he in prosthetics in the first film? Was that the joke they
Yeah.
were getting
Well,
at?
in the first film, he spends most of the time we see him in 1955, so it's just Christopher Lloyd wearing Christopher Lloyd. But in 1985 timeline in the first movie, he's got prosthetics on to make it look like he's like 70 or 80. And
Oh,
so he clearly did not want to be wearing all of that prosthetics for a
Right.
shoot or whatever. So they put that in as a and he's not going to be wearing the makeup, folks. Just get over it.
I thought that was
Right.
a clever enough way to get out of
Yeah.
that though.
Oh,
Him just
sure,
him
yeah.
just being like, I had to wear this makeup so you'd recognize me, Marty.
Yeah, and I'm glad they did, because when in the first scenes with him, he looked so pale and ashen. I was like, is Christopher Lloyd okay?
In 1989.
Yeah, like he looks really not well. And then he like pulled off his face, and I was like, oh, okay. They were building up to a thing.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting with the doc that he made such a point of being like, make sure you don't interact with your past self. And then the one moment where he's in the street and he sees his former self, he's like the most suspicious person
The
ever.
most conspicuous.
So like he corrects him on the screwdriver, and then the guy's like, maybe we'll see each other in the future, and he's like, maybe the past. And
That was the past.
yeah, and he's talking to himself. How is he not going to pick up on that?
Scene was completely unnecessary, and they only put it in because everyone else had a scene with their like future or past self.
Right.
So that just being an example to push me into an overreaching thing in this movie. How did Spielberg let this happen? Because Sean, I think you're a bigger fan than I am. I mean, I think he makes good movies. In particular, his kind of repeated jerking off to his own filmography.
Well, he didn't direct this. He produced it. Robert Zemeckis directed this. So,
Okay, but even still, the Jaws and Indiana Jones references. Although I laughed a lot at the Jaws poster when it's like Jaws 19. This time it's really, really personal. And I was like, that's funny.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, that's on the marquee.
What with the hologram shark? Oh,
yeah,
that's funny.
It's for Jaws 19.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really funny.
This time it's really, really personal. But then they have a little Indiana Jones moment where his hat falls off when he's hiding under a table and he grabs it. And I was like, Spielberg, can we?
Yeah, that was absolutely put in there for that.
Well, and a lot of the music sounded pretty similar to Indiana Jones too, didn't it?
It's not John Williams. I wouldn't say it sounds. It's orchestral and certainly inspired by.
There were parts that sounded like it was lifted right from that movie.
I think we have to make distinctions between orchestral music and music that John Williams writes, because John Williams has his like sound, but then some people can conflate like trumpets and string sounds for John Williams.
Yeah, similar to how like it was Zimmer that did Inception, right?
Yeah.
Who did the bois, and then after the bois, every other person like it's that tricky thing. I imagine as a composer, they're like, yeah, I have some ideas for this, and someone is like, yeah, if it could be kind of like the Inception music.
Yeah.
And then they try and do something like a personal take on it. And they're like, yeah, even more like the Inception music would be perfect. And then they end up just writing the same music again. I think that happens in film stuff.
Yeah,
that's how I imagine it happens.
So Alan Silvestri, I think, is the composer for this, and his like if you were to listen to the albums side by side, you would absolutely say like, oh, these are two distinct, different people, but because they use similar like orchestras when they're recording their pieces, I think it's very easy to be like, oh, that's just a Star Wars-y thing.
All right. All right.
Yeah. Not to mention like the music of, they brought back the Johnny Be Good thing. Because again, the second half of this movie is just like a walking back of the first movie, being like, hey, remember this scene? Didn't you love this scene? We're here again. We're back here and barely making any difference and barely doing our own story. But remember this story from the last movie?
Yeah, there's a lot of member berries going on in this film.
Yeah.
And I tangentially connected to this, I read that the trailer at the end of the film was put in by Zemeckis because he hated how Empire Strikes Back ended. He hated that the audience didn't know when they'd be able to like find out the ending of their hero's journey.
Oh.
So he put the trailer into the film so that the audience at the end could be like, "Oh, good. Oh, we get to see them again. Oh, good."
Oh, that's so funny.
So again, for context, if anyone's wondering, literally this movie ends, and it ends with like essentially with Marty McFly receiving a letter that after Doc has accidentally been struck by lightning and the time machine disappears, he gets a letter that's been held by Western Union for like 80 years or 70 years.
That was kind of funny.
Great little performance by Joe Flaherty.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty like funny moment that he comes out like a federal agent type dude. It's good. Marty McFly then takes out this very old letter that Joe Flaherty has made very clear that there's like a lot of intrigue at Western Union about it. He then opens it in the rain and lets it get mostly destroyed right away, like a total dick, and finds out the Doc is in the past. And then the movie is immediately followed by the trailer for part 3, depicting a bunch of scenes from the movie saying, "Hey, coming summer of 1990."
Did it even have that? Did it even say coming?
Yeah.
Oh, did it?
Okay. They'd filmed both films together, so they'd edit. I guess they probably edited them all together too, so they had all that footage ready to go for the trailer.
And is that movie any good? I've never seen Back to the Future 3.
It was my favorite of the 3 growing up, but I feel like it is probably I think it has a better script than this one, but I think overall it's a weaker film.
All right.
Yeah. I have next to no memory of it.
It's a Western. It all takes place in 1885, and there's a lot of cowboying and shooting them ups and
a lot of like paying homage to just old Westerns that were already made, not really doing an original story.
No.
It's just like they take those characters and put them in other movies. So like in Back to the Future 2, they make a point of Biff watching Dirty Harry. I don't know which one it was, but the one with Clint Eastwood where he gets shot with
$1 I think.
Yeah, but he has the plate of metal underneath his shirt. And then Marty McFly does that in Back to the Future 3 when he gets in a gunfight. So it's just like, hey, remember that movie too?
Yeah. Daniel is very unimpressed.
So I need to clear something up because I have in my notes, I'm going with Calvin Klein as a quote.
Oh, right.
And as someone who doesn't remember the first movie, I'm guessing that Calvin Klein is what Marty McFly tells his mom his name is because Calvin Klein is not a person yet. Is that the idea?
Unfortunately, it's not quite as simple as that because she finds Marty McFly.
What's happening with
out
Sean's face right now?
I'm waiting for your reaction to this.
Because it's better than that. So she finds him knocked out on the street. She brings him inside to look after him. And I believe it's because she changed him. She changed him into different clothes while he was unconscious, which she enjoyed. And she reads Calvin Klein on his underwear, and so then assumes that it's his name. And then she tries to have sex with him.
His mom.
Yeah.
Okay.
She tries to get it on.
And then they lean back into the fuckable mom thing in Back to the Future 2.
Oh, with his mom's big fake boobs.
And I was like, they really have to bring this
Why
back.
did you have to do that? Why? She
Why?
could have had them and it would have been fine. And we would have been like, oh, it's because Biff wants her to have big boobs. But then they had to make him be like, your boobs are so big, mommy.
Yeah, suddenly he's like holding back a boner.
Oh.
Like, mom. Whoa. Like, to be clear to anyone listening, if you're not sure, men don't just like boobs as a unit. Like, boobs on a wall don't do it. That's not what it
Well, I mean, you shouldn't speak for all men, Jack.
Yeah. I mean, the government of British Columbia suggests that sex happen with a wall between people right now. So.
Oh, right.
I'm sorry, what? Is that, have I missed that in the news?
That's from like a month ago, but yeah.
Yeah, look up the British Columbia sex rules.
Yeah.
This is for COVID, right?
For COVID safety. They were like, if you can have sex through or
Like through a
around
wall?
a partition.
i.e., a glory hole.
But they were
Oh,
like,
that's
or if
funny.
you have like an old timey like 2-part door that you can just open the bottom part of, they were like, that would be ideal.
If there could be a ton of barn sex going on.
Yeah,
that would
like
be
around
fantastic.
a corner somehow.
Yeah.
Like maybe one person behind a shower curtain.
I mean, that's like not a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's kind of sexy.
I mean, it probably spiced it up for a few people.
I like the old school, the old school door, or like the Catholic Church confessional. Where like
Oh, I love the turn this episode took.
yeah, it got weird. Okay, so just doubling back though, I'm confused by why his mom would think that he would have his name like embroidered on his underwear.
That's what people used to do.
Yeah.
Is that what people used to do? They would just embroider it on the waistband?
Look, she's
All right. Well, that clears it up for me, because I thought it was just more like aggressive product placement. I thought that they were just trying to find a way to like sneak
I mean,
more.
it is also that.
Well,
Yeah.
I meant for this movie though, but if it's a callback to the first movie, because this movie was just like littered with it.
Man.
Yeah, Pepsi in the first one. We rewatched the first one a couple nights ago, and then I watched the second one. And the first one is littered with Pepsi.
Yeah.
Just
Really?
Pepsi. Yeah.
And then this time they're like, you know what we could do? We could just do that, but with every company.
Nike.
With Nike and
Nike,
Pizza Hut and
Pepsi,
AT&T.
Pizza Hut, AT&T.
Oh.
Oh my God, the AT&T.
Black and Decker and Toyota. I wrote, there's like, it's everywhere, man.
So
Yeah.
so Pizza Hut, not only did they give their name and permission to use their products to the film, but they built a specific Pizza Hut kitchen into the set of that scene, so that every shot they took of the pizza coming out of the rehydrator was a fresh Pizza Hut pizza.
I mean, I will say I think that paid off, because that shot really made me want a fucking
That pizza looks
Hut
gnarly,
pizza.
dude.
No,
That
it
pizza
looked-
looked disgusting.
Yeah, it looks like trash.
like an 80s Pizza Hut pizza.
Well, I don't know. I thought it looked pretty damn good. I was also hungry. I haven't eaten it like basically at all today, so maybe that was it. I watched this movie literally right before we hit play on this
Daniel,
podcast.
go grab some nuts and put them in your mouth.
Don't gotta tell me twice.
Yeah. I didn't quite buy that this like future family is like eating rehydrated Pizza Hut pizzas, this like trashiness, and then they also have like this like idyllic future society contraption that like grows fresh produce that like lives in the ceiling of the kitchen.
Yeah, that was weird.
That it was like, yeah, that's rehydrated pizza, but also they can be like, fruit, and then fruit comes down and he eats it. Like, nah, those two aren't the same people.
And they're
in the same
supposed to be
house.
living in the slums too, which
Yeah.
is like the suburbs. I did enjoy the ironic take, I hope, of the suburbs becoming the most dangerous neighborhood in
Right.
in cities.
While we're talking about the scene in future Marty's house, did anybody catch when Marty's son is watching like the 17 screens in the TV and Jennifer
I know what you're
is
going to
watching
talk about. I know what you're going to talk
the
about.
headlight tit?
Yeah, the inflatable headlight tits.
Yeah, the inflatable
What the
tit. Yeah,
fuck is that about?
don't know.
Was it an inflatable tit? Because I thought it was a lighting system.
No, the inflatable tit. Yeah.
They were
No, it was the headlight tit is what it was called.
No, inflatable, man.
Are you sure?
They
Yeah.
used both words.
I
think they
went back
refer to
and
them as
rewound
headlights,
it.
but it was the inflatable tit. Yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah,
So fucking random, man.
yeah. And also, one of the channels he picked was the Weather Network.
Yeah.
He was like, it was like this channel, and it's like sports, tits, this, and he's like, and weather.
Yeah.
I thought that was supposed to be a joke, which
I mean,
was like actually kind of funny.
oh yeah.
Jack's like, no,
Maybe not.
not funny. Not funny.
So all these characters, like in the future and in the past, like Michael J. Fox is playing a lot of them, and same with the Biff guy and stuff like that. I actually enjoyed Michael J. Fox more as his other iterations of like future self and his like younger son self. I thought was like an interesting switch. I found Marty McFly in this movie really annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually
I mean,
did.
because they're writing him to just do annoying things, which doesn't
Yeah,
help.
well, that's the thing. Like, but that's how the character is then going to be. Like,
I thought he was a pretty annoying, like older version of himself too, when he was just like a spineless ass. Who I guess the idea was that he got fired, or he ruined his music career because someone called him a chicken, and he picked a fight and broke his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
Was that what it was?
Who got hit by a car? No, it's not Crispin Glover got hit by a car in the grandpa, and that's why he's in the like upside down hover machine.
Right, which I loved. I loved, by the way.
But they mentioned that something happened to him and he broke his hand, and so he couldn't play music anymore.
And to guitar.
Right. So now I forget what he does or what he was supposed to do, but he had a very, very stereotypical, I think, Japanese boss.
Yeah, that was a problematic thing.
Who calls him Marty McFly?
Yeah.
Oh,
sure does.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Oh God. As Marty is wearing two ties because it's the future.
Because it's the future.
They're two half ties. They're two half ties.
They were half ties?
They were half ties.
And someone else has a clear tie.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, a clear plastic tie.
See, this is where I start questioning these films.
That's where you start questioning these films?
No.
Yeah.
It's where the lines blur, because Idiocracy is a weak film, but like the design of the future at least had some kind of cohesiveness to it. There was an understanding about why humanity had reached these things, why they're wearing these clothes, why they're going to these buildings. But Back to the Future, it's like, oh, he's given two ties because it's the future, and maybe you'll be wearing this because it's the future, and the cars are flying because it's the future, and
yeah.
Well, I actually wrote down some of the dumb shit they said about that. They've abolished all lawyers for some reason.
Yeah.
All kids now wear their pants inside out,
right?
Because it's the future,
and
I mean, I can see that happening. That's
I guess, and they have dust repellent paper now, so there's no need for dust.
Right.
Just like a bunch of ridiculous shit.
So there's no reason for any of this to be happening, at least in terms of like how humanity arrives at the 2015 future, which is our past.
No, there's no logic at all. It's just like, this is the future. It's so different.
Yeah. Which, I don't know, because is it a kid's film? They swear a lot, and in the first one, there's a lot of swearing, and there's a lot of weird sexualization of things. So is this a kid's film?
It was for the time.
Huh.
Was it really? It just seems it seems like an adult live action cartoon. That's what this movie feels like.
Yeah, but I think it was treated as like a family affair.
He full on finds the teacher reading porn.
Yeah.
Oh no! Well, maybe the teacher's not reading it, but Biff was.
No, because Biff had it, and he put the almanac cover on it.
Right.
Yeah. I honestly don't like this movie. Is like a fever dream. I don't like I watched it also earlier today, but not as late as you, Dan.
I'm a busy man.
I watched it with Miranda, and we started to like groan as he like lost the almanac again.
Yeah. And
that kind of stuff. We were just like, oh my God, like the movie has to keep going now. And she was like pissed when he like has the almanac and Biff calls him chicken, which is supposed to be like his trigger. And it would have been like how movies are usually written is that at that point in the movie, he would choose to just walk away. And that would be his growth for the movie. And it was
which is totally what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah. It's what should happen. Like, if you're making that movie, I'm going to finish this in a second, but she was like, so no growth, no development, like fuck me. And I was like, yep, essentially. They had him not make that choice just so they could have the chase scene that came after it and the subsequent callback to the fertilizer bit. from the first movie.
Yeah.
Essentially, they wanted to get the fertilizer bit in again. So they extended the movie and added like a random car chase thing that was not necessary.
No. So the chicken thing is not in the first movie. It's something they wrote specifically for this movie and for the third movie because I can't remember. Like he pulls the thing away and he's got the bulletproof vest, the cast iron bulletproof vest in the third movie at the end in the climax. But it all culminates with Biff Tannen calling him, "What are you, chicken?" And he turns around and they have a duel in the street. So it's only a plot device they wrote in for these two films.
Really?
So it kind of made me pissed that they didn't have this in the first movie and they were writing it in specifically for this like 2-film arc.
Well, it's like a major plot point in this movie.
Yeah.
It seems like
it's like why he gets fired in the future because the guy trying to get him involved says, "What are you, chicken?" And so he does it. It's like the dude is like a sleeper agent who is activated every time someone says the word chicken.
Yeah.
He loses control of himself, and it's really hard to relate to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because it's such an innocuous term, but I love that because the two big insults that happen in this movie are chicken and butthead.
Yeah.
And I love the part in where we're looking at rich future Biff's casino, and he has that scene with Marty's mom, and he's like, the kid's a butthead just like his dad, and when the mom turns and he's like, "How dare you talk about his father that way?" And I'm like, what? What are you...
That scene was dramatic.
Yeah, it actually was like not that bad of a scene. It was the only scene where
I felt fear. It's a scene where the alternate 1985 Marty's mom has had to marry Biff because George McFly was murdered by Biff, and so it's actually this like kind of intense scene that starts melodramatic, and I think she stays more melodrama, whereas Biff, there were parts in that scene where I actually was like, oh, Biff is throwing around some power in this scene in a way I've never actually seen him do before. This is intriguing, which led me to think that maybe there would be a character arc for him later in the film. So yeah, but he like when he screams, he's like, "Just sit down." At one point, Adam, I actually went like, "Oh, okay, okay, Biff, I'll sit down."
Yeah.
Well, that makes me wonder how much of his cartoonish acting in this movie was just the director being like, "Bigger, no, go bigger. This guy's nuts. Go bigger." Because when he's older, when he's like old man Biff talking to young Biff in the car, trying to give him the rundown of the almanac, it's like a pretty subtle, grounded performance. It's quite
good.
Yeah. So obviously the guy has some chops, but then young Biff is just a fucking cartoon. So I wonder how much of that it was a director just being like, "No, it all has to be big. It all has to be huge. This guy's nuts." Right?
He's a monster. He's the bad guy.
Yeah.
But then
He's the bad guy.
Everyone in the movie was directed like that. Like even Michael J. Fox was like pulled off of his I think like his legs were taken out from under him, and Christopher Lloyd is insane. And also the one scene that Jennifer, whatever, the girlfriend, gets to have is nuts.
Like,
she's like, oh, running around the house.
Oh, yeah. I remembered. I knew they'd recast her, and I remembered they recast her with Elizabeth Shue, who is one of the like great stars of the 80s, 90s, and so I thought her role was going to be a lot bigger, and she has that one scene, and it's not good. And then she's unconscious for the rest of the film.
Yeah, they leave her. Yeah,
well, she goes unconscious 3 separate times in this movie, right? Or is it just twice? The first time,
twice.
Right. So they knock her out, and the doctor says he actually uses too much knockout gas, and that's why Marty's son wakes up early, because he dosed her so huge. So he dumps her in the garbage and leaves her on her park bench, and then she passes out from just seeing the older version of herself, and then that's her entire part of this movie.
Yep.
Cool. Well,
On
that note,
let's throw any final words on any of the movies we've seen today.
I had a great time.
Yeah.
That's all I got. I got nothing. I don't know. Jack?
Oh, I think we lost Jack.
I can't tell if we oh, yeah, he's gone. I thought he was doing a bit where he just was so annoyed he didn't want to say anything, so he was just freezing. But no, we just lost him.
And goodbye.
Yeah.
The Lumineers have entertained millions across the world. Now, step behind the music and look at the man responsible for one of the Lumineers' most enduring songs. Yeah, well, I was the janitor in the recording studio that day, and the lead guy there, he was standing in a pile of dirt I'd made to sweep up, so I yelled out, "Hi!" Well, then the lead guy there, he got this look on his face, and he was like, "Do that again," and I was just like, "Hi!" And then he asked if I'd sing on the album, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, but you're still standing in my dirt, bud." And now it's day 108 of a 6-month tour. I miss my broom. Hear the magic. Learn the history. This Thursday on Ho Hey, the Stan Gunderson story. Hey!
Hey, welcome back. If you're watching us today, you'll see that I've now fully entered the sunspot extension or something that is my current bedroom.
The puddle that used to be Jack Rennie.
Oh my God, like I said before we came back on broadcast, I'm like sweating under my tits right now. Like the shirt, if you can see it.
Are they the inflatable tits or?
They're the inflatable headlights that I purchased in 2015.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, just 5 years ago.
So now that we've talked about these movies as much as we can, maybe things will come up still, but let's talk about the breakdown of how we're going to now compare these movies and declare which one of them is our Citizen Kane of the week. So anyone who's not, which for both of these movies seems fucking ridiculous.
Excellent.
For anyone who's not familiar, we compare these on a scorecard that's pretty loose, but these are the parameters that we go by. So there's 5 categories, which are looks, sounds, acting, story, and rewatchability. Rewatchability is sometimes categorized as like an enjoyability factor, or like if you had to watch one again, which one would you watch? And then simply whichever one wins a majority of those 5 categories is declared the Citizen Kane of the week. So I don't know if this has been apparent in this so far to either of you, but like I had an okay time watching these movies, but I was also like frustrated by both of these movies.
Yeah.
I don't want either of them to win. So I had a really tough. I always make some gut like oh maybe I give this category to this one to this one.
Yeah.
But I don't like making any positive decisions. It's like, which one was worse?
This is the first week that I'm not dead set on. I'm dead set on 2 categories for each movie, and then there's one that I just don't know which one to put it in, which could throw the whole thing. So
is the one that you don't know the enjoyability factor? Is it which one would you watch again?
No.
Oh, really? Okay. So are we all drinking? Wait, let's all drink. Here we go.
Before we begin this, okay, here we go. Fuck.
Jack needs hydration.
Yeah, Jack.
So
you look like you're dazed in the sun right now.
I am losing.
It's like you've been stranded in the desert for days. You're just like sweating and slowly getting like the sun is getting hotter and hotter on your face, but you're also getting more and more in shadow.
With this like ancient tent tapestry behind me, like I've been stuck in the desert. And I'm trying to put my face in the light, but I can't. So hopefully you're not watching this episode. We just shouldn't release it on YouTube. Maybe if I go in the shadows.
Really close. Yeah, when you got there, you go. Yeah, perfect, man. That's better. All right.
It does actually feel better too.
Well, yeah,
I've been like squinting at the screen this whole episode. Like my head is like tight. Anyway, let's talk looks, because I feel like we touched on it. Like both of these did a decent amount of like effort in terms of like practical world building. and how they used like they made practical sets, practical sex, and like practical vehicles and costume design. Like they did. I think both movies went for it. I mean, granted, that only really applies to the first half of Back to the Future,
Yeah.
but even still, that's something I think they have in common. What do you guys think? I don't know.
This is where I am very unsure.
Really? This is the one?
This is the one.
Oh shit! I
This
thought
is
this.
the one because I think it all comes down to what I mentioned earlier, that I don't know, everything just looked right for the future that was being depicted in Idiocracy, and everything that was portrayed in the future of Back to the Future, which was the better of the halves of the film, still just rubbed me weird. Poor phrasing, but just made me uncomfortable. Yeah. So I don't know.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Well, I'm pretty sure. I think that this is like a clear point for Back to the Future. I think that, like, I hear what you're saying, Sean, about the fact that everything just seemed to kind of fit more with Idiocracy.
The design was better, I want to say.
Well, the design was more of like a simple concept. What I appreciated about Back to the Future was, for as outlandish and wrong and ridiculous as it was, they had a creative idea and concept in mind.
Sure.
It was disjointed, but it was still a lot more fun to look at. And you can't have a movie made in 2006 that has comparable CGI to a movie from the 80s.
Again,
it just doesn't fly for me.
I feel like it was a bit of a choice that they didn't have a lot of money in the budget, that they just kind of went, well, we're not going to try and make it look realistic. We're going to make it look like sort of Monty Python backgrounds or something.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, but even the practical effects for all the hoverboards and flying cars and the stuff that they pulled off in Back to the Future 2, I thought was more impressive.
All of again, we talked about like Michael J. Fox playing multiple characters. There were times when they had like 2 or 3 characters of the same
That's
actors.
true. Shit.
And they were really, I was amazed at how good they were at doing that, and how seamlessly those scenes were put together.
Except for the first scene where Biff meets his older self and he's in the car and he's like, "What are you doing? Get out of my car, old man." The acting from young Biff was atrocious. Atrocious.
But the physical effect was.
But the effect, I'm talking about.
It was almost unnoticeable.
Yeah, shit.
I never really noticed it. Like I was very convinced. There's only one time where like they had someone go outside, and then like
was that when the 2 docs meet each other in the street and the hand comes out from behind the light post?
That, and then also in the retro 80s diner, old Biff exits, and then young Griff, like there's like a shadow crossover behind the glass door, and then young Biff enters, and they try and make it seem like it's one cut of the shadow, but like I can tell, but like anyway, in general, like they did it really well. I totally agree with you, Sean. Like the visual style of Idiocracy is all stemming from the core concept of the movie, whereas Back to the Future isn't really rooted in anything. It's just like, stuff, future maybe, and remember the past, and like it's also the 80s, and we gotta love that. So, but I kind of ended up being in the same boat when I thought about it as Dan. I'm just saying, like, no question, it looks better. If it's a movie, actually, if you didn't listen to it at all, it would be actually a pretty fun movie. You'd be like, wee, like it'd be like a cartoon.
Yeah, it would. There'd be a lot of.
It's just when people are talking that I want to shoot myself.
I agree. It's the better looking film.
I'm surprised that you're upset about that. I would have thought that you'd be all hands on deck.
Well, no, it's because I too am disappointed again with my picks. It's 2 times where I have thought I've had that formula down. I've figured out this fucking podcast, and it just bites me in the ass, and I watch 2 mediocre goddamn films.
You know what I've learned about your
list
choices
that we put together. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
But what I've learned about your choices, Sean, is I think that you get too intellectual about it. You go too much for like the core themes instead of just like
Right.
a funny comparison, right?
Yeah. Well, someday I'll get it right. It's fine. Back to the Middle Earth
Future.
2. It's yeah.
So let's talk about sound then. So
Okay.
I don't know what much to say about the sound of these movies. I remember that Back to the Future was scored. We talked about its music. I don't remember. All I remember about Idiocracy is fart sounds.
There were a lot of those.
And ow my balls.
Oh, my balls.
That was a funny bit. That's so stupid. But it worked for me just fine. This is the idea of a TV show called Ow My Balls and a guy getting sacked. And then he shows up in reality as the real actor. And he's like very simple and reserved. And people just kick him in the balls. It worked for me. Just like the saddest base level of my humanity.
Oh.
But I hear you
Yeah.
though. I don't remember anything distinguishable about Idiocracy's soundtrack.
I think there were some like machine sounds, and then the Carl's Jr. burger stand that called the cops on the lady who couldn't afford her food.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I don't even know what the competition is. I think this is also just like
Back
to the Future. Like
Back to the Future.
It has sound design. It seems like that was not in the budget for Idiocracy at all.
No.
Yeah, there didn't seem to really be a budget for this movie. I think it was just a collection of favors that were called in.
Well, this is Mike Judge, who did Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill.
Oh, really?
Right,
I knew the name sounded familiar.
Yeah, now that I remember from you saying that, it makes a lot of sense.
And the writer Ethan Cohen co-wrote it with him, and he did like Tropic Thunder, and he's done some really great comedy films like Tropic Thunder, and he's done some just like god awful shit. Right. So this movie falls right smack in the middle of that spectrum.
I thought Ben Stiller wrote Tropic Thunder
with Ethan Cohen.
Is that how you say? Wait, are we talking about one of the Coen brothers?
No,
different Cohen. Okay,
different Cohen. That's Ethan Cohen.
There's an
that's what I was confused by. I was like, have I been
Sean,
saying his name?
Are you pronouncing Ethan Cohen and like
are you
Ethan?
Like Ethan Cohen? That's how his family knows him. He's Ethan.
I remember when Ethan and the Cohen clan lost many in the famine.
I was like, this is not the podcast to prove that you know how to pronounce Ethan Cohen.
Yeah, no. Ethan Cohen.
Although we do have apparently all those Irish listeners.
Yeah.
Not true. So for me, this one is Back to the Future. It's just the only sound design that they did do for Idiocracy was having a guy record all the narration to try and put the story together.
Yeah, I wish we'd seen some of those scenes, because then it would have been a movie.
Well, my theory is that the scenes, my theory is that the scenes ended up being so shallow that they had to narrate. I have a feeling the narration was added in the edit. It wasn't part of the original script.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah. There's literally one where Luke Wilson starts to speak and then the narration comes over and it's like the speech he made that day moved them all, and it's like, wait, what? And it kept showing him talking, but they just like dubbed over the speech.
Yeah.
Which just makes you, for sure that was done after.
But the fart sounds were top notch.
Yeah. I mean, no, they weren't actually. They were really clearly also put over the movie. They weren't like sourced within the scene. I didn't feel like it was coming from people's asses.
Oh, I do have to, because I didn't mention it in the main body of the podcast, but the Lazy Boy toilet chairs, I think, are for sure going to be a thing someday. If they are not already.
Oh, 100%. Well, it was that and the garbage avalanche made me just think of WALL-E. It just reminded me of like, so the fact that like the two probably most influential movies of this century now talk about, lazy boys and garbage, we're for sure heading there.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean just the garbage mountain reminded you of WALL-E, not the toilet? Oh yeah, actually the toilet chair.
They got toilet chairs. Yeah, that's
right.
I don't know if they have toilets in the chairs, but they all like hover around on these like floating lazy boys. Anyways,
that's for WALL-E versus Manos Hands of Fate. I don't know.
What?
Well, we're watching Manos Hands of Fate.
All right. Okay.
Great.
Acts good.
Act good. Which movie act good?
Oh, this is again a tough. Actually, no. For me, I think this is pretty clear cut. But I want to hear your opinions before I give mine.
This one is like, okay. I don't know what that means from you. I'm actually confused by this.
What do you mean you don't know what that means from me?
Because I don't know which movie you're referring to. Like,
Really?
Like, oh,
Yeah, no.
To me, this is again my example of like I didn't like either of them. I didn't like the acting much in either of these movies.
Fair.
But I particularly was not vibing with the acting of Back to the Future.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is you have two movies that are both ridiculous, but in one movie, at least the main characters are like human beings.
Yeah.
And in one movie, they are buffoons. And like, so.
Okay, I went Back to the Future with mine just because, like, it was fun. It was fun to see all the different character variations for me.
I don't know that there was much like. I feel like
they weren't
most people
were
were just screaming in this film.
Yeah, Biff was the same screaming lunatic in every single iteration of himself and his family. Michael J. Fox did some interesting stuff with some of his, like his son was quite interesting when he suddenly was playing his son.
Yeah,
and, like, this weak, sweaty version of himself.
A pervy, sweaty version of himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, was he pervy? I didn't even.
Yeah, he was like flipping up. He was looking up girls' skirts as his long sleeves dangled at his side as he walked down the street.
Oh, good.
Whereas,
good.
Even though it was like. Well, yeah, of course it's supposed to be dumb, but in Idiocracy, that little side group of actors that were playing like the government were actually doing a good job. And the casting
that kid was hilarious.
Like, that young ginger, the red-haired
kid,
that was brilliant casting, and he was so good.
Okay, you reversed me.
Those other actors are all people I vaguely recognize. I don't know their names, but I recognize them. And they were all good. Like they worked well together. And like those scenes in the White House are funny. Like they're the best scenes in the movie.
Even Terry Crews was good.
You guys turned me.
Terry Allen Crews was good.
Terry Allen Crews.
I'm switching my vote.
Yes.
It's weird.
Yes.
It's
a sweet category.
Dax Shepard was like pushing it, but not being bombastic.
But he was supposed to be like the dumbest among them. And I think that what I liked about Dax was that like I think he actually walked that line pretty well because he was super dumb.
Yeah.
But not to the point of unbelievability. You know what I mean? Like he always felt like an actual really stupid person.
He did.
Yeah.
You like money too? Oh man, that's what. Oh wow, do you like sex too?
I like money.
Not the way I do it.
Okay, so acting goes to Idiocracy.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And before we leave it, who? Help me remember his name, the actor, but the guy who I wanted more of him. I was hoping he'd be more of the movie, but the actor who played the doctor.
Oh, Justin Long.
Justin Long,
yeah.
He nailed it as that doctor.
Nexus. Yeah.
His name was Dr. Nexus?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. That's funny.
So...
Oh, Jack, your internet sucks all the balls today. Again? No, I can hear him chuckling.
Speak, Jack, speak.
I'm coming back.
Okay, all right, there we are.
Woo! Yeah. Good. I thought we lost you.
Oh, and then it came up. Your internet connection is unstable.
Connection.
But like I think he was like it was one of those things where it wasn't good writing. I think Justin Long was improvising his stuff.
Yeah.
That he was just like, yeah, essentially your brain is stupid and you're a dumbass. Like he was just like improvising and you talk like a queer. And like that was his like doctor like that was him giving his whatever, I can't make the word. But anyway, he was great.
Yeah.
So that's currently 2 for Back to the Future and 1 for Idiocracy.
2-1. I didn't think it would be 2-1 at this point. Hot damn, we got it.
And this next one.
I know exactly where Jack is going with the next one. I know for sure which way he's going.
We're all on the power train to this one.
Back to the Future, right, guys?
Shut up.
it's so funny because the story of Idiocracy is just so flimsy.
There's nothing there.
It's like wet cardboard. Like it is like it's just there's nothing to it.
But
And
it's
yet
better than cheese strings as a plot.
Yeah. It's better than like pieces of like script stapled together. Yeah, like it's just Back to the Future is such a mess. It's like I said, it's multiple movies. It's at least 2 movies and they're not cohesive.
Well, it was kind of like they got a writer's room of like 10 people and just got them all to throw ideas in a hat and then just tried to include all of them
Yeah.
in the film.
Well, it's also weird because it's like they realized that they wrote a script for a movie where they just go to the future and it was just a 50-minute script and they were like, "Damn, this isn't enough movie, but like I don't know what else we're going to do. We could go back again to where? Like the first movie. Yeah, people love the first movie."
The thing was, they had enough to do a full future movie.
Yeah.
If the movie was Help Marty's Kid, and we learn about like who Marty's kid is, and like how Marty's in trouble in the future, and they try and help recreate the future that they want at that point in time, that's a fun film. Why do we have to go to 1955?
Yeah. Like the moment, like the climactic moment of the first movie where he's like in the first movie he sees his like family, he's like a photo of his family portrait, and the climactic moment is him seeing himself like come back into it and the family members reappear. That happens halfway through this movie when they fix the future issue and the newspapers change.
Not even halfway through. It's the first the first 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Shit.
But then they have to like rejigger everything in the past as well.
Yeah. Which I want to give a shout out to in a unique way, even though it's still kind of the past affecting the future. Almost always time travel movies, like when they have this, it's about like a thing in the past having a butterfly effect on the future. I thought it was kind of cool that they managed to make a movie where something in them going to the future creates a butterfly effect in the past.
Yes.
Which is not usually how time travel stuff works. Which that's actually kind of neat.
We should move on to story before we talk ourselves into giving it Back to the Future.
Oh, there's no way that can happen because there's no what I disliked
rather,
what I disliked about Back to the Future was the fact that they were so selective about what had a cause and effect on the future and the past.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean? There was no real rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
So it's 2-2. We're looking at 2-2.
2-2. We're a tie game here.
That's weirdly enough, that's a point for Idiocracy.
Wow.
It feels wrong, right? It feels wrong giving Idiocracy points, but
it does.
Yeah.
Okay. And yet, Back to the Future 2.
Here we are.
And this was actually the point that I was I thought we might get here, and this is now the point that I'm worried about. I don't fully know.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't want to watch either one of these movies again, if I'm being honest. If I had to, I'd probably just like kill myself. So I'm not really sure what to do here. Sean, you had a choice on this. What do you think?
This is one of my firm ones.
Okay, Back to the Future, right?
Ooh, feeling firm.
I'm very firm right now.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there is one movie here that I am not done exploring for other things that might have been included in the journey that I missed, that might add to the comedic value of certain scenes, and that film is Idiocracy.
Shut up, really?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. All right.
I don't think there's anything left to be mined in Back to the Future Part 2. I'm sure there's a lot of funny little like Pepsi signs that I didn't see the first time around. However, I think there's funnier Pepsi signs in Idiocracy.
Yeah. You even watched the first Back to the Future in preparation.
I did.
So you really were with it.
The first Back to the Future would have obliterated either of these movies.
Yeah.
To dust.
To dead.
Yes.
Dan, what are you feeling?
I mean, if I have to be honest, I had more fun in Idiocracy. I laughed a ton in that movie. It was dumb, it was simple, the humor was cheap and not very clever, but I there was a couple of gut busters in there. I think that if I had to choose, I would probably go with Idiocracy again.
Yeah, I also reluctantly chose Idiocracy. There's like a future for it where like I don't do many of the drugs, if any of them. But if I were to indulge, this movie could be fun. Even if I was just like a bit tipsy with like not alone, like with some friends,
Sure, yeah.
this could be a funny thing to like sort of have on and like have a couple laughs. It's not going to happen. I'm just imagining a future where it could happen, where I don't know what possible future, not 2015, not 2505, and neither of these futures do I watch Back to the Future 2 again.
I still can't get past that it was 2015.
Yeah.
That was the year we're looking at, 2015.
Yeah.
With self-drying clothes and
Yeah.
you know, like,
and
are you
lawyers
tired?
are abolished. What?
And leaving women in alleyways.
Well, that will probably still be happening.
I just want to make sure we really hit that home. If no matter what you got from listening to this podcast, Back to the Future 2 is weirdly okay with leaving women unconscious unattended. That's like the main point of the movie, I think. Like if it gets them out of the way, just knock them out and leave them somewhere.
Yep, that is the first message you receive. And it's also one of the most lasting messages of the film.
Well, that and it's okay to lust after your mom if it's a future or past version of herself.
That's a Back to the Future trope. That is like there's a lot that's deeper than this movie.
Yeah, Dan, you just
Are you defending the idea, Sean? Is that what's happening?
No, I'm saying he's got a hot mom.
So you are defending the idea of lusting after your mom.
Dan,
I'm confused.
No, Marty McFly's mom.
Okay,
yeah, exactly.
Even if you're Marty McFly.
I'm not going to judge.
Okay.
Look,
all right.
Dan, if you're Marty McFly and you went to the past and you saw your mom as Marty McFly, but she's hot now, and then you came back to the future and she had tits still and they were big, you as Marty McFly would want to maybe sleep with your mom. It's Dan, like, why are you fighting this?
It's been written since, Oedipus was first laid down on paper, okay?
Since what was laid down on paper? To say it one more time?
And the Citizen Kane of the week.
Leave a drum roll, please.
Idiocracy is
Yay!
Yay, it did
Clap,
it.
Sean! Yay!
It's so impressive. It's so impressive when one movie wins by the other movie just horribly shitting the bed.
But I did not expect it from a Back to the Future movie. I mean, I'm not familiar enough with the franchise, but I really didn't. I really thought that it would just be like an obvious blowout, and it was not.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Bet. Well, I believe it's my turn to pick movies for next week. Is it not?
It is, and you have pretty big shoes to fill. Your own shoes, that is, from your last pick, because those were good. National
They're
Treasure
good.
and
No.
What was the other one? Indiana Jones. That was you, right?
What was the other one? One
Right,
of the greatest movies ever made.
Oh.
Yeah, National
lost,
Treasure
didn't it?
and the other one,
that other film.
the apparent schlock, which we learned.
Yeah.
I'm not. Sometimes we've done some where we pick them and we haven't discussed them at all. This is one that we've discussed, and I'm actually, when I had pitched it, I wanted to pair it to another movie, but I've chosen, for the sake of fair arguments within the podcast when we do it, to choose another one to pair the classic with. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a tricky debate. I think it's going to be some sweet clickbait more than anything.
Great.
Get those views, get those bell smashes.
Get those bells, like and subscribe, y'all.
Bam, bam, bam.
That's our new thing.
What?
Bam, bam, bam. Like weird, childish
Yeah.
Flintstone references.
That's what all our fans are gonna scream.
They're gonna
when we
turn
come
off the
out.
fucking podcast when they do. Next week, I am pitching Jaws versus the Meg.
Yes.
The Meg. You went
Yes!
with the Meg instead
I
of
went with
Sharknado?
Meg. I really wanted to do Sharknado, and maybe there's a future where we still do, but because it's such like it's like D movie schlock. Like,
Oh no,
Oh,
we're
Jack's
losing
gone.
you, Jack, and this is
Your
this feels
internet is
important.
unstable.
I'm sorry, I have bad internet connection right now.
That's okay.
This is the most compelling part of the podcast so far, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I'm.
Oh, nope. Oh, no.
Oh god, this is bad. You have any funny jokes, Sean? While we, while we wait?
So, Termite walks into a bar and he says, "Where's the bartender?" No, see, because
What?
bars, so bars are made of wood. And, and so when he's saying, "Where's the bartender?" he's not saying, "Where's the bartender?" He's saying, "Where is it best for a termite who loves wood to dig into the bar and start eating away?" It's a little.
Oh, where is the bartender? That was some high level comedy there, Sean.
They call me Chuckles.
Oh, is Jack back? Or
Jack?
I can't.
Jack, do we have Jack? Oh, we've got a kitty cat. The first ever appearance of Ophelia.
Ophelia. For those listening,
your
not
butt.
watching, we're looking directly into Sean's cat's butthole right now.
She's a shoulder cat now.
Oh, she's a cutie. Well,
What's
this could
Jack?
not be a less opportune time for Jack to lose.
Sorry. A
his
new
connection.
Jack has entered the waiting room.
Ooh, like Jack 2?
I hope it's an improved version of Jack.
It's a warmer Jack.
It is a warmer Jack.
Yeah, your skin is more orange now, Jack. What happened? This has been the weirdest thing to watch, just the progression of the daylight in your room.
No, now I'm like enjoying a pleasant dessert. No, wait.
Oh, dude.
Oh no.
Oh, man. I really wanted to hear the explanation as to why he went with Meg instead of Sharknado.
Yeah, I think we might have to splice in a separate.
My internet is so bad.
Oh, we can hear you.
Oh, I'm starting to get you guys again.
All right.
Okay,
Have fun
good.
editing this, Daniel.
I'm not going to. It all stays. It's just,
Oh my god.
You're not paying me enough to do that.
Yeah, we're not paying you at all. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. That's super rough.
That's okay. We
That's
blame
okay.
your ISP.
So I want to just point out one thing. It's the movie is simply called Meg, isn't it? Is it
No,
the
I think
Meg?
it's the Meg. I think
Are
there's
you
a the.
sure?
I think there's a the.
I think
in
there's a
E or
the.
something. Yeah. Look it up though.
I'm gonna look it up.
Prove me wrong.
Meg sounds like it's about a woman named Megan.
It does, which is why I thought it was so funny.
Meg.
No, it is the Meg. Oh, I lied because it was originally called Meg, and then they changed it to the Meg. That's what happened. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So anyway, that's the pick for next week. I think it'll be a better pairing, and I haven't seen the Meg, but I know it's still
fun.
kind of meant to be like a schlocky, like
Yeah.
like appease the masses type film. So
Well, it's
I
like
think it'll be
schlocky in the way that like Fast and Furious movies are schlocky.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have seen the Meg maybe like a year and a half ago now. It's fun. It's a fun, shitty adventure. I've seen Jaws, probably not for 12 or 13 years.
Yeah, a while.
That's a fun goddamn adventure.
Yeah.
All
Oh,
right.
geez, easy with the biases from the
The
get-go.
fun guy. I mean, that was 12, 13 years ago. Who knows
Yeah.
what my understanding of film is now?
I just
Well,
think,
I'm
I just
excited.
think I think Sharknado would just get gutted. I just think there wouldn't even be a. Although I don't know.
Nope, we're doing Meg. Jaws versus the Meg.
That Meg.
Yes.
Great. Well, that's decided. while my internet is good, I want to jump into our signature sign off here, which is where we do a couple Thanos teasers, and I have at least one funny idea that I'm excited to share.
And what are the Thanos teasers, Jack?
Well, I'll tell you. So essentially, these Thanos teasers are a little kind of homage of sorts to the Thanos teasers that we experienced throughout watching the development of the MCU, where Avengers would finish and then Thanos would do something random in a post-credit scene. So this is where it's a kind of like a game. I call it a game. It's a fun thing to do after watching a movie. You imagine what the Thanos post-credit teaser would be. After any movie, just any movie that you want, how it sets up Thanos, how he appears after that movie.
So, did either of you watch the post-credit scene for Idiocracy?
I did.
Yes.
So I was in the middle of trying to write a teaser for that movie, and then the actual post-credit sequence hit.
So Idiocracy has a post-credit scene where there's been this joke ongoing with how they're going to pay it off, where Maya Rudolph has been worried about her pimp coming to. She's like, no, he'll find me no matter what. And then the post-credit scene is another pod opening, and the pimp gets out and starts walking around.
Yeah.
And we should also note the pimp's name is Upgrade, spelled
Upgrade.
UPGRAYYEDD.
Yeah.
So wait, what was your Thanos teaser then?
I didn't even get. What did I write? Hold on. I didn't even get a whole idea out because it started so fast. I have Thanos has fallen on hard times and is working at the H&R Block.
Oh.
Which is now a sex work store.
Yeah.
And then I have was in the middle of writing my teaser when the actual post-credit sequence came on. So that was it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I didn't. It was hard to flesh out a real one. I saw that the actual post-credit scene, and then I had like the idea for like another one that's just another capsule opens, like, and Thanos gets out, and he's like, I don't know. Again, I don't know what the payoff is. I don't know what he does. Or he's like, damn Avengers, or he's like, no, wrong way, and then like goes back in, and I don't know, like I have no idea. I don't know what the payoff is.
Well, I mean, the obvious one to me seems like it would be something to do with him seeing how stupid the world has become and deciding to wipe out all of humanity instead of just 50% of it, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't find a way to make that funny, so I just went with him working as a sex worker at H&R Block.
Hey,
And that works.
if anything's hilarious, it's a big purple dude giving out hand jobs.
What if we lean into the fact that like this is still the same universe, and so Thanos did conquer the Earth as he did?
Yeah.
So like,
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Jack.
no. But that they're like, we cut to like the same thing has happened, but with Thanos's people. So like there are like super stupid Thanos kids running around also, like flying spaceships into other spaceships, and it's like the same thing has happened to them.
What did you have for Back to the Future?
Yeah.
Okay. So Back to the Future also
He
has
pulls out like a
teaser.
manifesto, like a whole script.
Say it in the next 2 minutes.
So essentially, my idea was it's a continuation of how this movie ends with like a teaser for Back to the Future 3 with them in the Western. So it's like that. It's like coming like summer of 1990, and then it's like whoa, and then like cuts to another one, and it's like Marty McFly in space, and it's like Back to the Future Part 4, and it's like him in space, and like whoa, and they're flying like the car, and then they meet like Thanos, and he's like, who are you? And then it's like coming fucking 1991, and it's like whoa. Back to the Future Part 5, and it's like, and then it's like Doc asking Thanos like, what did you do with Marty? And then like it's like coming like 1992, and it's like Back to the Future 6, and then it's just Thanos in the DeLorean reenacting scenes from the first.
I think I'll take that one.
From the first Back to the Future, like he's changing it so he plays the guitar, and he's like watching Marty McFly's family portrait change from Marty McFly to Thanos, and he's like, yeah, and he's just like altering all the timelines to be about him, but over the course of 3 more parts.
I'm in. That's the original Marvel universe at that point.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, I've got nothing, so that's the winner, Jack.
Yeah, I thought that I was excited about it. I thought it was pretty fun.
You are the Citizen Kane of the Thanos trailers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with that, I think you should play us out.
Oh shit! Do I remember how this goes?
I hope so.
Citizen Kane versus.
Meow.
Bam, bam, bam.